Thank you very much. Everybody can hear me? Is anybody here who doesn't speak English? Oh, just me. Excellent. Jovita asked me to prepare a presentation about change management, and we're going to discuss a little bit about changes. I would like to go and say that changes is part of life, and it's part of intelligence, part of creativity, and part of innovation. So all those things are kind of put together. But we're going to focus on change, and you can apply it in a large organization, or you can apply it to yourself or to your life. It doesn't matter how big it is. The presentation is sort of like for a company 1,000 and up, but it's also applicable to you. The aim is to understand what change management is, or change in itself, okay? Because there is a bit of a philosophy behind change, and it's very important if you're running your own business or running a department to understand what's going on in there. The best general direction of change management in future, because change management now in a lot of organizations suffers crisis, okay? Quite serious crisis, and we'll discuss that. Next point is a bit of a solution to this, because we need to combine change management and factor it in, couple it with other areas in organizations for it to work effectively, and we'll discuss it as well. We're going to have a little bit of insight about intelligence, what intelligence is, how natural intelligence works, and how artificial intelligence is going to follow it. And we're going to have some exercises. So I'm sorry for that. Maybe, you're not going to just sit here. You're going to have to give me some answers. And maybe we'll do some exercises and things, physical exercises, run around the block, if you get the answer wrong. So, problem with the information is that information in communication is very serial. I'm saying words, okay? I'm talking to you. One word, then another word, then another word. And I'm giving you pieces of puzzle which you need to put in your brain in the right spot, right? So when we read whatever, we're watching movies, it's very serial. Our brains work much faster. They work on a much higher level. They process quite a lot of channels at the same time. So what are we going to do is start with a story, 3 stories. Key stories about change. First story, now remember, they're important because they will show up later on. First story is a marketing director in QAPP Australia, Proprietary Limited. I can't mention names, but it's 90s. He opens his computer, dials a BBS, and by mistake he dials a BBS, which is an ISP for internet. I know, you don't know what's going on, but anyway, he accidentally connected to internet. And his eyes opened. Next day, he runs to his general manager and says, Mike, coincidentally the same name, and he goes, Mike, I'm so excited. And he goes, why? Have you found a new girlfriend? No, I found the internet. And he goes, don't worry, it's not our business, forget it, right? So the marketing director is a little bit, he doesn't give up, creates a presentation, sees the curves, and it's no-brainer, right? It's not this, it's this. It's an exponential function, so there's not much imagination involved in that. Creates a presentation, major shareholders are sitting, there's a meeting room 3 months later. Everybody sits and says, internet, look at that. And the marketing manager does, dance and shows, look at that, how beautiful it is. And they all go, well, no, we're in different business, forget it, okay? First story. Kind of reminds you of, what was it? What was that company that died just recently? Nokia or something like that? Yeah, it will never catch on. Second story, very important, key story for our changes. What's going on with changes and why is it so difficult? John Smith. It's not his real name. It's not me. He's a top-level manager in one of the communications companies here in Poland. He creates a process. That process brings in 50 million zloty a year, employs 50 people, question, what happened to the manager? Did he get promoted? Anybody who thinks he got promoted? He got a pat on the shoulder. Who thinks he got a pat on the shoulder? Okay. He leaves the company in 3 months' time. Exactly, he leaves company in 3 months' time. So, first, there's a change. We know it's coming, right? It was actually mentioned yesterday about the ships and the ice production, if anybody was here. It's sort of like the same story. John Smith, another important story. Somebody who brings money to the company. Really brings a lot of money to the company and leaves. It's not singular story. And the curve. It's an interesting curve because it's kind of a rudimentary representation of the size of the company. You can say, okay, this is the size of the company and this is the relative interest in that company's really to change, right? So the bigger the company gets, somehow they're not getting very interested in changes. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with one of the C-level executives on Monday about this presentation. I was saying, oh, I'm having a change management presentation. And she says, oh, I've got a joke for you. I go, okay, I like the joke, so I'll tell you, I'll share the joke. A young executive gets his position, right, gets into his office, and he opens drawers, and he finds 3 envelopes, numbered 1, 2, and 3, and an open letter. And he reads the letter, and he says, mate, I'm your predecessor. Congratulations on your, advancement, and to help you out, I've left you some instructions when you are in times of trouble. So when you're in times of trouble, open letter 1 and so on. Well, what do you know? 3 months passes, he's in trouble, right? Opens the first envelope. Blame it all on me. Excellent. All right, so he's scot-free. Everything is beautiful. Year passes by. He opens the next envelope. And the envelope says, instigate a major change initiative in your department or in the entire organization. Okay, it worked. 1 year passes, he's in trouble again. So he opens the third envelope and it says, start writing your envelopes. And the person I met last week gave me sort of like their perception, because she's working for one of the major billion-dollar companies here in Poland, says that really change management, no, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. It's right. It's seriously dangerous. It can seriously damage the company. I actually disagree, because we need to think what change is, how it happens, why it works and why it doesn't work. And we're going to discuss about that. Next is philosophy. So we have 3 stories, right? Let's turn it into a bit of a philosophy. Why philosophy is important? It's very important because without philosophy, if you're doing something and you don't have a certain philosophy about what you're doing, then you're not going to succeed. And it's something that comes from experience. And why? Because it's like, first point is philosophy of marketing. Don't get confused, I'm not talking about marketing, I'm talking about change. Philosophy is simple this, what am I doing? So in marketing we knew 20 years ago what is going to happen today. Believe it or not, we knew it 30 years ago, what is happening, how is it going to happen? Because philosophy of marketing is very simple. We coexist with sales, and sales and marketing will merge together. And we knew it back then. Philosophy of change management is a little bit more difficult. And why? Well, Lewins. This is a bit of a nice picture here. It's not very focused, but probably everybody's seen it. That we have certain structures. We have our organization, way of thinking, our culture. We need to melt it and reform it. Make it something new. And there's a big mistake in that, because what happens is we're doing that for efficiency. We're doing that simply to make money. This is the only reason why we are involved in this type of change. It's to make money. And who are the people who make changes, who are most capable of making changes? Are they really focused about money? Is money their purpose, their goal in life? I disagree. We'll have some material about that a little bit just soon. So, in reality, organizations are catching on that this model, Lewin's model, is not really working, that there's something's missing, but organizations don't know how to approach it and don't know what to do with it. So what are the goals? What is it that we want to do? Well, let's have a look at some points, important facts about that, what is organization and what is happening and why, where is it coming from. The old paradigms, today they've disappeared. We have wolves and sharks and so on, which is very interesting because something new is, people think of new things. There's a saying. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And I can actually show you how from SWOT analysis we can create all business models, strategic business models, actually can be derived from SWOT analysis. If you understand information, knowledge, and intelligence and how it works. This model was wrong because in reality what happens is it described two different things. And what's important in this is the structure. So actually what happens in an organization could be two people or more, just two people, who do something together to achieve certain goals, right? That's an organization. As a matter of fact, you can meet together here today, have a goal, you create an organization. So that old model was wrong because the other part, the charismatic leader and political system, it's actually how the control influences the organization. So in here, those two pictures, we have a machine and we have a living organism. What's the point between these two systems and what happens? It's simply this, that this wheel touches other wheels in very specific points and information is controlled in a very specific way. Could be information, process, money, knowledge, whatever. We're controlling it. If this little wheel drops off, nobody will know practically, right? That's the organization as a machine. You only mean something if you control the systems, right? In living organism, if something happens to one part of the organism, the rest of the organism somehow will know it. And that's the difference. It's how we distribute information, how free that information becomes. It's sort of like this example we had before in play. Everybody got involved, right? It has a lot of benefits if we involve more people with the information, but the danger is somebody might take that information away from us and use it against us. So there is a bit of a truth behind the machine that we want to control certain valuable information. On the other hand, we want to share the information to find better solutions. What's the balance? We'll talk about this. Another important fact, Drucker. Anybody read Drucker? Peter Ferdinand Drucker, you know who it is? I like the guy. Every top manager knows him. And the 6 factors influencing knowledge workers. And I say that change managers and anybody involved in change will be a knowledge worker. Would you agree? Yes, I think that we agree. He named 6 tasks. They're very important. Now we're going back to the stories as well. First point is, what is the task? I think that he's made a mistake here because it shouldn't say what is the task, paraphrasing, but what is the element we're looking at. An element in an organization or whatever you do, there are elements. It's an information structure that you can deal with it in a number of ways, in a number of interesting ways. It could be an employee, it could be a process, it could be an order, it could be anything. You can view it as an element. It could be dynamic or static, okay? So the question is, it's not exactly what is the task, but the task is an element in itself, and it has other properties that you have to be watchful. So a bit of a mistake, but very good point about organizations who are getting on with innovation and change, because innovation and change, as you're going to see momentarily, cannot be separated. Need to be given responsibility, self-management, and autonomy. Very important stuff. People who are intelligent or creative need that autonomy to work better. Creative people don't work very well in confined spaces where you have number of rules that you can't break away from it. They will try to break away or leave the company. Continuing innovation part and responsibility of. Knowledge workers are creative workers. They have to do it. It's sort of like evident. Self-evident in itself. Continuous learning, but also teaching. It's extremely important in terms of really effectively transferring information, knowledge between individuals within an organization for better benefit of the organization, for greater benefit of the organization. Quality versus quantity. Everybody forgets in this time of money, because one of the problems is money, is that we always require in organizations and of ourselves that our success is measured by the amount of money that we make. If we have two systems without which we cannot live, one is cardiovascular system and one is the lymphatic system, right? So it's a bit of a metaphor. And I would say that money is the lymphatic system, right? Makes your life comfortable. If you don't have it, you will die. But really, what is the most important in an organization is knowledge. Yes? Information and knowledge is more valuable than money. It's more of a bloodstream which needs to be respected a little bit more. And the last point, which is very important, is knowledge workers need to be seen as an asset, not as a cost. It's very difficult to translate this or tell it to certain people, and we're going to talk about what sort of people it is difficult to talk about, how is innovation an asset? Because we have different types of intelligences and they're going to act in different patterns. And it's going to be impossible to communicate certain things to somebody whose brain is a different pattern from yours. All right? And most importantly, what everybody forgets is that last bit. He wants to work for the benefit of the company above all other opportunities. Well, Drucker was right. People with higher creativity, heightened creativity, have a heightened social responsibility concept evolved through their experience. The more creative the person is, the more they will work for the benefit of others rather than themselves. But there are some people who work more for their own benefit. They're also creative. Harvard Business Review has informed us of it. But we will have a mention of that as well. But mostly creative people work for the benefit of the other people. They don't want to hurt or steal or cheat or lie or anything like this. Creativity is about experience, about gathering things, what the world has to offer. It's not about money. Another important thing is, what is the task? Going back to Drucker, he says, what is the task? What is the element? It's the change. So the first problem, major problem with change management is that it's vast. When we're looking at changes, this is my own division. Some other change managers have a shorter divisions, but there are divisions which are universal, strategic in its nature. The entire organizations will need to undergo major, massive changes. And that will involve, if it's strategic, it will involve technology, IT, IS, human resources, the entire culture will be shifted, right? The entire feelings of all the employees also will be in different place. Technology is all about machines, for example, the production facilities and so on. IT is a little bit different than technology. So let's not confuse this together. So, what to do with change management and what you need to understand with change is that, nature provides us with a lot of answers. You'd be surprised how often, somebody invents something that was old, that was already here years ago, or thousands of years ago, or millions of years ago, that nature has thought of it. And the thing is that we have this, we have this first model machine, which is the safety security, where we have all the income and all the money and everything's peaceful. Now suddenly the world is changing and we realize that we need to act faster and better. So we're more and more talking about becoming an organism, but some organisms are better than the others. And the next step is an organism which has total freedom in how it interacts within itself and with its outside world. The new metamorphic organism, so it's an organism capable of metamorphosis, changes, massive changes. It's capable of undergoing massive changes in a very short time. But how does that translate to you? How do you commit yourself to metamorphosis in a very short time with little energy input, and how to do it effectively? Okay. We will put that together. You have to remember, if you're an organism, in this picture it's all black, so it's sort of like, okay, we are an organism, but you are not living alone. You have to understand that you're living with your outside reality. It's your outside reality which dictates who you are, what you are. A little bit like Karl Marx, yes? Environment shapes your consciousness, so you have to be careful of the environment and you have to be mindful of it. Global, macroeconomic, microeconomic, local environment, that means target market, qualified target market, the people you're dealing with. Things like Y generation, e-commerce, all those are environmental changes that you have to be aware of and understand for those changes to go through. If you're a change manager in an organization, your organization is also your world, outside world, and it's part of that world as well, and how you're going to translate this into something that will have a clear and successful outcome. So let's go a little bit about intelligence and talk about what is creativity, what is innovation, what is intelligence and imagination. First of all, you have to realize first thing. I am talking to you, we're communicating, right? I'm saying one word after another, word 2, word 3. You're putting the puzzles together. What you may not realize is that things like this, information, yes? Hands up who knows what it is. Is anybody here in this room who can tell me what is information? Surprising, isn't it? Actually, information is not defined. Communication, we're doing a little bit better, but we don't understand in 100% concept of communication. Intelligence, well, we're getting there. We don't know what it is. Creativity as well, yes, there's a lot to learn, but it's not a defined concept. Innovation, we know that one. It's something novel, new, and valuable. Excellent, all right? So we have a consensus. This is one of the terms which is consensus terms, but believe it or not, money, we don't know what it is. And thus, economy. You can actually go and Google it and try it and say, what is the definition, philosophical definition of money or economy or information, and you will find some articles, and when you go deeper, you will find out it's like with time. Everybody knows what time is. Believe me, there are thousands of physicists who would like to talk to you. Behind the scenes, we have this concept called intelligence, and it is connected with our brains. So it's in our brains. Not entirely, but it's about the brain. It's about a structure that is hardwiring itself. It's both software and hardware. We grow neurons, and it's sort of like we adapt this program with life as we go and we have our experiences. We accept new information which changes us. All right? Now, this is more like a hardwired thing of neurons and gluons between them, which dictate what is happening and how we react to certain things. We have this part of intelligence which is hardwired called awareness. This awareness has those things, inputs called senses, your interface with reality. So whatever you see, hear, and so on, it becomes your running code that's going to change what's inside there. We have this other thing, imagination, and this is very important stuff. Now, if you're a knowledge worker, change manager, or if you want to create something, this is a very important insight. Imagination in this drawing is sort of away from the awareness. And it should be kept that way because of what? Anybody knows if we allow our imagination to interfere with our awareness, what happens to us? Have you ever heard the term like prejudicial bias? Yes? So anybody, if you ever want to do something creative, if you want to start your creativity process, listen, open your eyes, open your ears, don't think. Yeah? The brain, your intelligence, will do the work for you, believe me or not. It is possible actually not to think and wake up in the morning, make yourself a breakfast, dress, without thinking anything. It's pretty amazing. If you don't believe me, you're having a conversation. Yes, somebody talks to you, right? And what happens? You immediately respond. Have you thought what you're going to say? No, somehow it happens miraculously, yes? It's there. So imagination, keep it away, but imagination is very important because it's like a flight simulator for pilots. The better imagination you have, the better creativity you're going to attain. Okay? This is like the mode where you fly in a kind of a safe environment without any, harm coming your way. And then we have this other thing called creativity. Now, creativity, what is this then? Creativity is the actual component, the active component of faculties. That means our intelligence at work, our imagination bearing fruit. Now, the good news, all of you are creative. Okay? You found your way here, you walked through the door, and that was a creative act. You found an empty chair, that's a creative act too. So everybody is creative. It's not the question of who is creative, because everybody is creative. It's about the level of creativity, the level of experience that you had in life where you pursued the level of creativity that you have. And creativity translates itself to the faculties, what we actually produce. Now, there's some strange letters here. They're codes, they're functions. This is the functions of how intelligence works. We have the same functions existing in our senses and in our faculties. So it's like a system, what comes to us gets transferred according to certain functions, and then we produce certain things according to those functions. And believe it or not, it's kind of disturbing because it's very simple in principle. In theory, it's extremely simple. Let me give you an example. If you look at this pixel here on top of the letter I, one pixel, okay? Now this is a creation of a computer. So the intelligence, whatever intelligence, it doesn't have the intelligence, it has a code. It goes, ones and zeros. If I translate one to a beep, it goes beep, 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 beep. And I'm standing here for 20 minutes just to get that one pixel, that information that the computer produces to produce that one pixel there. It's all ones and zeros. Same thing with human intelligence. What happens to us, but it's different. We have 3 pipes. And they have different values, -1, 0, and 1. So the code is a little bit more complex. It's a nonary code, but in its nature, it's very simple. Now, this picture on my desktop, that's fractal geometry. You know fractal geometry? Right. You know what it is? It's just a snippet of a complex function. It's nothing more than zn plus 1 equals z squared plus a constant which is less than 1, preferably, because it will go chaotic. And then you reiterate it in the computer and you form things of such beauty. And it's only one function, right? This is one snippet of a polynomial, complex polynomial, being reiterated over and over. And human intelligence kind of does the same similar things. So we have those codes, but the codes are a little bit more complex, mathematically speaking. How does that translate? Now this is the good part. Let's talk about creativity and compare it from atoms and psychologists. How do we put it in motion? How do we put it in practice? Now, believe it or not, when we're looking at the lowest life forms possible, and the lowest life form possible are sperm cells. Yeah? Okay. No jokes, please. Sperm cells are extremely simple life forms, and they have no brains. Interesting, isn't it? Yet they behave in a certain way. Now, I don't have much time. You probably all want to go afternoon, barbecue or something, yes? All right. Now, anyway, doctors for many years believe this is the only one normal sperm cell that is in existence, and this one is got a kind of mucous membrane and a coiled flagellum, that's the tail, flagellum, and the other one has really cold flagellum, and these were genetic defects. Now, about 10 years ago, one doctor took sample of one donor and another donor, put them together, and voila. Whoa, hold and behold. Things started happening, and these things started to behave in a very specific ways. These guys, we know what they're after, right? These guys were cruising around, waiting for other donors' sperm cells to attack them. They're actually predators, right? They eat into the sperm cell. And I couldn't find the picture. I've seen the pictures, electron pictures. It's very interesting. This guy does similar thing, tries to jump around and catches the other sperm cells. Now, how does that translate to creativity, right? Now, let's have a look at the psychological model. So psychologists are looking top-down at the reality of creativity, and we're looking bottom-up, from atoms, yes? From atoms, molecules, and particles, and we're looking at atoms and extending this whole view into three types of creativity, of how we think, according to the codes. Revolutionary innovators, acquiring innovators, so people who do and like to put things together, right? We gather and put things together, and we have improvement innovators. Psychology is spot on, except for this one, and if you don't believe me, I'll just give you two names. This is not a creativity type, they actually got it wrong. This is envision an ideal future, and I'll give you two names, Hitler and Gandhi. Okay? I rest my case. Now, when we're talking about creativity, but also change management, and that's very crucial, this is the foundation of the change management and anything that you do, you have types of different inventions, and if you put those people's pictures, and probably you know all those people here, right? Right? Okay. There's a bit of an insight. The revolutionary creators are the ones which we discussed. They work for the benefit of the company and all people in general. These people will work strongly for the benefit of other people who are in immediate contact with. So we can create a culture of sort of like, acceptance and stuff like that. And these people actually work for themselves most of the time. Doesn't mean that they're all negative, but creativity type has its negative side, and that embodies itself in theft, in plagiarism, in taking credit for somebody's hard work. And that's what happened with John Smith, right? John Smith created something, somebody took credit, John Smith had to leave the company. Also, this is the way how we work. Look at these people. Do you see those people working in a team? Would you imagine those people working in a team as a teamwork? I wouldn't. Look at all those people, thousands of them, and that's why I don't have the faces. I actually put two faces, you know, sort of like to make it more interesting. This guy invented USB 3, and this guy invented LCD screens, but I don't know their names. They're actually improvers. This is Moore's curve, you know, everything is getting increasing. This is the idea, and the philosophy behind these people are in a lot of things that change in the world. These people stand behind it. Number of transistors increasing, they're improving it, improving. This is an old thing. This is the pattern that they're repeating according to the code that they're running, intelligence code that they're running inside of their heads. Predominance. People are more complex, so it doesn't mean that if you're right here, that means you're staying right here. No, that means you have predisposition for this area, but you can move. But there are some limitations to it. Some people who are in a certain way, they're more predisposed to certain things, but they can, you know, do something else. They can learn to do something else. So it's not like the sperm cell, okay? Another interesting fact about changes, there's an innovator, this guy, anybody knows this guy? No? Edison? Very good, Edison, yes. Now this guy is hailed as the greatest inventor of all time. As a matter of fact, he has 2,332 patents worldwide to his name, of which 1,097, and I'm sorry I could be wrong, 1,093 or 97 in the United States alone. How many of those patents did he write? Zero. Zero. Absolute zero. He was a businessman who collected, he paid money to researchers and engineers, collected the wealth of the information, the discoveries, and pocketed all the money. So we're going to John Smith, we're going to the question is how do organizations remunerate innovation and creativity? How really the input and the investment each individual makes in the given company, what is the return to that individual, okay? What we're running on is this, pat on the back, everybody's happy and everybody's accepted because these people running according to the M code, to the improvers, will be happy with it, but they're not really capable of revolutionary inventions, of going beyond the boundaries. They will never break the boundaries. They will always keep within the boundaries. And these people are very good collectors, gatherers. They could be gurus, right? They also have an important role to play. But the negative side of this, we're talking about narcissism, psychopathy, and sociopathy. And this is a subject of poryology, and it's coming out now about organizations, how our organizations and political systems work. And it's kind of very interesting reading, and I would suggest that you do and follow it up. So you have all those different predispositions, and what managers today don't realize it, they're creating a team, you want to change something, you want to do something, you have teams of people. And each of those people, individuals, have a heightened or less heightened level of creativity and different type of creativity. If you have this team and say, well, let's make some changes, do you think I would be comfortable letting that team running some changes within the department? No, I wouldn't. What about, let's innovate something new. Which one is better, team A or team B? Let's create a new product. Yeah, I would say this one, with the removal of this element, okay? So the dynamics, team dynamics, and what happens in the team, right? Unfortunately, we are predisposed in a certain way, and we act and function in a certain way. We can change it if we really want it, because we are very complex, but sometimes it's not that easy. Okay, now quickly some practice. When you're going with creativity and innovation and things and how you're making the decision, 9-dot exercise, everybody knows it? Excellent, fantastic. There's the solution, right? Question. How does that apply to your business? I can stretch it, actually. Boundary conditions. I can say boundary conditions. I can stretch it, okay? Yeah. But otherwise, yeah, but it's a great thing. Okay, let's be creative. We'll do something like that. We have a bit of a game. How does that help? Not much. Bit of a test, now, this is part of the practical, is how do you see reality? Really, are you really aware of yourself and really aware of the world around you? So the question is very simple. How many senses do we have? 5, okay. 7, no, external senses, not internal, not ESP, that's an internal. External senses. 5. Anybody gives more? Anybody? 3, I see 3, 4, 5.
There was a movie, Fifth Element.
That's a little bit different. Yes, that's true. Yes. Okay, so let's count them. Sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste, right? We all agree. Yes? True? What about this? Well, if I put a bucket over your head, put you in the sun, and tell you point to the sun, guess what will happen in 100% of the times, all of you? You will point to the sun. Absolutely not seeing it. Huh? Try it. Yeah? Now, there is something, when we were talking about intelligence, this is a very important factor because now you're thinking, okay, there's 6 senses, you're kind of disagreeing, it's 5 senses. No, it's not. Actually, the number of senses that we do possess external is 3 or 6 or 9. And you can figure it out at home. How did that happen? Huh? So actually the number of senses is 3 or 5 or 6 or 9, but it's not 5. Another thing, another exercise that is going to be helpful in your business is because business runs on something which is reality. You know reality? Excellent, yes, because a lot of, I have some young people who are on Facebook all the time. Their concept of reality is a little bit different. Let's go back to this real reality. There's a pattern. Give me some answers. What is happening in here? What sort of a pattern do you see? Well, I used to be a marketer, so it's a product life cycle curve for me, first of all.
Currently, we can see reality politics in Poland.
It's got politics in it. Excellent. You would be very surprised. That curve has something very important. This is about reality, how the world and the universe, produces those codes, which is information to us. And this is very important because it's a exothermic redox reaction, it's a return on investment, it's a system development life cycle, SDLC, product life cycle curve, machine exploitation curve, viewer interest, the Roman Empire, there you go, or Polish Empire, yes, that's also there. Okay, so you see there are patterns which repeat themselves in things, and the more you recognize a certain pattern, you will be more adapted to change and evolve, instigate real changes wherever you are in the environment, but provided that you really have a good look around you. Change management. You see, I've heard a lot of interesting lectures, and one of those interesting lectures there was this Internet of Things. And there was this wonderful picture of the future, as everything is connected to everything. This is just absolutely fantastic. We're going to connect our, smartphones. My industrial robots. And that was very interesting. Robots, industrial robots. Just a few years ago, the United States of America has conducted a successful industrial war attack on Iran. What they did, they connected to the fuselages, which separated, I don't know what they called exactly, but they've separated enriched uranium. They've destroyed Iranian nuclear program, okay, delayed it for a year via internet. Now I want to connect everything to internet. I don't know, there's things. But the thing is, somebody says something and everybody follows it. Another example, business example. This is a change curve. Is there anything in this picture, it's taken from mindtools.com, I better give things. Is there anything in this picture which strikes you odd? You know, don't feel bad because this exercise actually is a days-long exercise, right? But, you know, just looking at this picture, is there anything wrong? Would you question it? No, I have plenty of things. I'll give you a hint. Let me give you a hint right there. Huh? So you might go actually to Mind Tools, pull it down, because this is change management theory as change managers, and anybody who's interested in change or anything like that should know it. But I have certain things like this. Status quo, that's the state of the stage one. So we have a stage one, it's called status quo, and the reaction to the status quo is shock and denial. It could be true, right? You're coming back home, there's your spouse. What are you doing here? You know, I thought you divorced me. Could be a shock and denial, right? But you see, a lot of managers and a lot of people would just follow blindly certain instructions without really understanding what's going on. Now, the whole stages are wrong, the entire naming of the stages are wrong, I'm having some problems with the impact and so on, and also what's about the rest of the curve. And look at that. It's the same curve we had before. Oops, this thing doesn't work. Anyway, in summary, to be really in change management, if you want to change you personally or whatever it is, you have to start doing things new. In organizations, what change management does not have is the understanding that it needs to couple up with innovation and project management for greater effectiveness and greater, it's kind of like the knowledge is like the energy in the organization. Change managers by themselves will not survive in the long term in large organizations unless they will adopt to something like this, which is an organism capable of metamorphosis. It's kind of like a fluid in between kind of the cells and how to move it and have the ability to move those cells and move the resources from cell to cell, unlike strict structure of an organizations which are more like a machine, which are incapable of quick changes. So the project management has the future as long as it is going to embrace innovation and project management and jump into those roles. Anyway, but they need greater expertise and greater autonomy, which is not happening. And the obstacles, unfortunately, is in here, the mentality of leaders, okay? Because who do you think are the leaders? Are corporate leaders? Because it's sort of like the story of play. It seemed to me that the leader was something there. But normally in companies, who do you think are the leaders? Are people who are most interested in money, in profit, and getting the shareholder value, which are these people here, Edisons, okay? And that's why we can't communicate, and that's why we can't really instigate real changes. So, Jovita told me it's time. Everybody probably wants to go. One thing, not willing to fail is not willing to change. Change is painful, okay? So don't be afraid to suffer a little bit of pain and, get out there and experiment a little bit more. And as Drucker said, yes, if you want to do something new, you have to stop doing something old, in line with Albert Einstein. So, time for one question, yes? No. No. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję bardzo. rozszerzeniami, po prezentacji albo pytaniami, to zapraszamy do przy wyjściu do kuluarów. Dziękujemy bardzo za spędzenie z nami dzisiejszego dnia. To jest 10. już zjazd, 10. dzień Digital University i w tym roku akademickim to już jest koniec. Będziemy informować o tym, kiedy startujemy po wakacjach, a za tydzień jeszcze tydzień, jeżeli ktoś z Państwa oczywiście ma w tym wieku. Dziękujemy bardzo.